Today I'm going to show you step by step how to set up an AllstarLink node using the HamVOIP image so that you can connect to literally thousands and thousands of amateur radio operators, repeaters and links all across the world. It's rather straightforward, but we're going to go through all of the steps to set it up. It's going to be rather easy. We're going to use a Raspberry Pi. I've got a Raspberry Pi 4 here and a Sharry Pi Hat. I've got it or one already built and already set up. This actually uses a SA818 RF module in it. This is a transceiver. This is a radio inside of a Raspberry Pi here. You can get these from kitsforham.com, and it comes as a kit. You just build it up, solder in the little chip there, and this hat sits on top of the Raspberry Pi 4. There are also other models available for those who have a Raspberry Pi 3, which plugs directly into the Raspberry Pi 3. So there's plenty of options out there, but check out kitsforhams.com, and I'll put a link in the description below to those. So the very first thing that you want to do is go over to allstarlink.org. This details exactly what AllstarLink is. It's a network of amateur radio repeaters. It describes itself remote bases and hotspots accessible to each other via voice over internet protocol. So basically there are thousands of nodes across the world and you can connect to each node. Now, if you go over to the website, you can register for an account for free, which you'll need to do so that we can get a node number assigned. If you go to lists and stats, we can go to the Allstar node list, and this will have a list of live nodes and all of the nodes around the world. And if we have a look here, we can do a search for my call sign, and you can see here some of the nodes that are listed under my particular call. I've got one here which is sitting here, which is my hub 55580, and I've got 59598, which is my mobile node, which is actually going to be this one. Now this is the one that really needs rebuilding, so we're going to start from scratch rebuilding this one. We'll go through how you connect to nodes and how it all operates after we go through the image. But it's really easy to filter and search. Let's have a look here. I can find my friend Kyle, AA0Z there. He's got a couple of nodes, so I could easily connect to him. I can also search for all of the ones, for instance, here in VK. Here's all the ones that are in Australia. So by the end of this, you'll be able to build your own node and connect to literally any node that's on this list. So the very first thing to do is to sign up for an Allstar account, so you can easily follow the sign up process. So once you've done that, then log into your account. But if you click on Portal, click on Server Settings, we need to set up a server, which is where our nodes are going to be hosted. They're mainly hosted on the actual computer itself, in this case, the Raspberry Pi. They're the most common, but some people also do have servers hosted in the cloud, and they can connect to, they can run AllstarLink from those particular dedicated PCs. So I've got 3 servers, one for each Pi. If you click on Add a New Server, and then proceed with server setup, you can give it a name, you can give it a location where you are, a site if it's applicable, any affiliation with any club. This port here is important. This port requires port forwarding, which we will do later on. So if you've only got the one node, which we're going to be setting up today, just leave this as blank as 4569. Proxy IP we can leave blank and set up your latitude and longitude. Once you submit that, then click on to Portal and click Node Settings. And you can go in here and you can click Continue to request a new node number. So you can see here I've got multiple options because I've already got some node numbers, but if you click on Request, this will allow you to select your server down here that you just created, and then you can hit Submit. Now I don't need to do that because I've already got some node numbers assigned. It usually takes probably a day or two for the AllstarLink admins to assign you the node number. And once that does, then it'll appear in the portal under node settings. So for now, all we need to know is what our node number is. We don't need to worry about any of this other stuff. Once you've got your node number set up, if you click on it, you'll notice here that you've got a node number. You've got a password as well. Don't let anyone else know what your password is. Your call sign, the frequency and the tone that you use on your particular node, and then you've got some other functions here, but we're not going to go into those functions right now because we're just basically setting up a node. Okay, once we've got our AllstarLink node number assigned, then we go over here to hamvoip.org. This is the image that we're going to be loading onto the Raspberry Pi. Now, this is supported on a few different Raspberry Pis. If you actually click on download, this brings you through a bit of a step-by-step. It looks a bit confusing, but don't worry about that. It's not that difficult. I think at the moment the latest version is 1.7, yeah, 1.701. That includes the Pi 0, 2W, 2B, 3B, 3B plus, 3A, and the 4B image. So it supports quite a number of Pis. We're going to download the image. Now it is an executable because it includes all of the relevant programs that we need to load the image on. So just go ahead and download that somewhere. So whilst that image is downloading, the Raspberry Pi uses a micro SD card here at the bottom. I recommend getting something like this, a high endurance SD card. Now these are designed for dash cams and home security systems. The reason that I recommend getting one of these cards, and they are pretty cheap, I think the 64 gig version I got here in VK for about $13, $12 or $13. The reason I recommend these cards is because of the high endurance nature of them, because this AllstarLink node will be powered on 24/7, and we don't want the SD card to die. If you use some cheaper SD cards, they end up corrupting and end up failing over time. So if you get a high endurance card, then you're less likely to have any problems going forward. But they're relatively cheap. Check them out. There is a link in the description below to this particular one that I've got. I should mention too, this was a 64 gig card because this was the only card that I could get, and it actually was pretty cheap. You only need a 4 gigabyte card. I do have another card which we're going to use today, which is a 32 gig card. Again, fairly cheap. It's overkill for what we need, but for the price, $10, it's not really that much of an issue. And there'll also be links to all of the other equipment that you need, as well as a Raspberry Pi, if you can get hold of one. Okay, so what I've done is I've just run the executable. Depending on what you're running this on, if it's Windows like me, you may get this issue saying that it's an unknown publisher. Just run that anyway because we know what we're running and it's safe. And then that will open up a 7-zip extraction archive. Just select the location that you downloaded your image to or create a folder and click extract, and that will go ahead and extract this for us, which it's doing with the image. Okay, so there's our extracted files. Now, if I'm going a little bit too fast for you, you can always pause or rewind the video if you need to. Win32 disk imager. This is the first file that we're going to run. This is going to allow us to image the Allstar HamVOIP image onto our SD card. So if we double click on that, then we'll get a pop-up asking for a user agreement. Let's just go ahead, and you can create a desktop shortcut if you want to, but let's go and install Win32 disk imager. And then we just want to launch it, hit finish. At this point now, what we want to do is we want to get a SD card reader. Now, if you've got a laptop, then it's more than likely that you're going to already have a SD card reader in it. I've got an external one here, so I'm going to plug this in, and then what we'll do is we'll image the SD card. So now I plug that in, you'll see that the device is now populated as my E drive. Now, just make sure that it is the correct drive that has been selected for your SD card, and then click on this little folder icon here and we'll select the image. So in our folder, you see there we've got RPi Z2W234 version 1701 image, hit open, and then we just literally hit write. It will say that this will writing can corrupt the device. Do you want to continue? Just hit yes. And this will now write the image to the SD card, and you can see that we've got a bit of an idea of how long this is going to take. Okay, so our write has been successful, so all you need to do is just click OK and exit out of Win32 Disk Imager and just safely remove the SD card from your device, which I've done, so I can take that out now. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that into the Raspberry Pi, so just into the slot into the bottom. Now, we're going to have to connect this via Ethernet. So I've got an Ethernet cable over here, which I can see there. So I'm going to plug that in, and then I'm going to plug the Pi into some power. Now, we're going to access this over SSH. We're not going to use a PC monitor or a keyboard or anything like that to access it. So what you want to do is you want to head over to mobaXterm.mobatech.net, which there's a link below to this. This SSH program is going to be a lot easier than using PuTTY or WinSCP, which a lot of people use for our purposes. So just head over here and download this software. Now you can download the free version, you don't need the professional version, so go ahead and download that and just download it, the installer edition here. So there we go, there's the installer. Let's just run that now, and we can hit next install. and we're good to go. Now, if you start up MobaXterm, it'll probably come up with this Windows Defender firewall. Just allow access for that so that it can access your network to talk to the Raspberry Pi. So what we're going to do now is you need to find out the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. So to do that, power on your Raspberry Pi, plug it in via Ethernet, and go to your router and find out what IP address it has been assigned. Now, let's just do that on mine. Okay, so I've gone to my list of DHCP leases and clients, and you can see here you want to look for this one called Alarm Pi. That's just the default name that the image gives. It's called Alarm Pi, and in this case, there's my IP address, 10.0.0.189. So that's the IP address that I want to look for. So we go back to MobaXterm and we go to Session up into the top left-hand corner here, and we go SSH. And we type in our IP address, 10.0.0.189. Yours might be different depending on what your router has assigned. We click on Specify Username, and it will put in default. We type in root, as we're using the root account, and then port 222, port 222. So once we've entered those details in, hit OK, and it will say, looks like this is the first time you're connecting to the server. Hit Accept, and it will prompt now for a password. Now, the default password is root again, so ROOT. Hit Enter, and it will say, do you want to save this password? No, because we're going to change that password, so hit No. And we get a little pop-up like this, which is going to be an interactive menu. Let me just shrink myself down so we can see it a little bit better. The first option will be retrieve the latest system updates. Do you want to do this now? And you can move your keyboard to yes or no. We do want to say yes, so hit yes. This will then download some of the newest updates and packages from HamVOIP, which are required for a first-time installation. So it'll go ahead and do that. And it will say now that the system has been updated, do you want to reboot? So we hit OK, and we just wait a little moment for the Pi to reboot. And then all you need to do is just press R to restart the session and wait for the password to pop up again. So we type in again root and hit Enter. Do we want to save? We want to select no. And this will then rerun the scripts for the start of booting up the Pi. So retrieve the latest system updates. No, we've already done that, so you can select no. Would you like to run first setup now? Select yes. Enter a new root password. So this wants to be a password that's not the same as what you got assigned from AllstarLink. You want this to be a password for you to access your device if you ever have to. So go ahead and put your password in that you select and hit OK. Do it again for verification. And now it'll ask you whether you have a private node or you have an AllstarLink node. So since we've been assigned a node number from AllstarLink, we want to select no because this is going to be publicly accessible and dialable by other ham radio operators. So you can set up a private node system if you want to, but we're not going to do that today. So hit no. Now it says enter your public node number. Our node number here, which the one that we're building today is 59598. So we're going to go back and enter 59598. An important thing also that I didn't mention before is when you're entering in these numbers, any node numbers that you're entering, do not use the numlock keypad. Always use the other numbers at the top of your keyboard here, if I can actually show it on screen. Always use the row of numbers along the top because apparently there's something funky in the script that does weird things if you use the numlock. So just a little tip there as well. So enter in your node number and hit OK. And do you want to set up your node configuration for asterisk? So what we're going to do is we're going to select yes. So hit yes. And then it says that this will be run after reboot. That's fine. We just hit OK. The first thing we're going to be asked for now is the time zone. So the current time zone set to America, New York, that is far away from where I am. So we want to hit yes. We want to change the default time zone. This will download a very, very big list. So just scroll down until you find your time zone. Mine is Australia, Hobart, and hit the space bar. That will put a little star next to it, and then hit enter on OK. And it will say, it will prompt you, do you want to change from this time zone to Australia, Hobart? Hit yes. Now it'll say the current host name is Alarm Pi, which is what we found in our router. Do you want to change this? So hit yes. Now, I recommend changing this to your call sign dash the node number. So this will make it a lot easier for you to find the IP address in your router at a later date if you're trying to find a specific PI, which you might have multiple Allstar nodes set up, so it just makes it a bit easier. So hit OK. Now it'll say, do you want to change your IP address with dynamic? I don't want to do it in this case. You might want to set a static IP address. I set static IP addresses in the router, so I don't need to do this, so I can hit no, I don't want to change that. Do you want to change the default port for SSH? In this case, we don't want to. We want to leave it as 222, so hit no. And then it will say that we're going to reboot with the IP address and SSH port, which we haven't changed. So we hit reboot. Okay, so it's rebooted and it's going to ask us for the password, which we set in the previous step. So let's go ahead and do that. Now it's going to ask you, do you want to save? We're going to click no. You can click yes now because we've set the password that we want to. That will then go through a process to set up a master password for this program, which we're not going to go into today. So in my case, I'm just going to hit no. Put in our node number, and then we're going to ask for a station call. So just enter in your call sign, VK7HH in my case, hit OK. And you'll get this question saying that, do you want to report your status of your node to allstarlink.org? Now, you don't need to do this, but you'll notice that if we go back here to the status page, we can see all of the node numbers that are assigned, and these green ones are showing that they're online. So it's recommended that you do that. You hit yes to report your node status to be able to know, so other people can know when you can and can't connect. Now it's going to ask you for identification purposes whether the node is going to identify in CW or voice. I want to use the inbuilt voice, so I just click yes, but if you want CW, then you can click no and it'll just ID every 10 minutes using when it's in use using CW. So we just hit yes, we want to use that. Now, remember that we had our default port, which we want. Now, we've only got one node here, so let's just select 4569 and we'll hit OK. Now, it's going to ask you here for what type of mode is your Allstar node. So there's a few different options here. We're setting up the Sherry Pi Hat today, so this is going to be number 1, which is just a simplex node. However, if you're interfacing this to a repeater or you're setting up a repeater using Allstar, which is beyond the scope of what this video is, then you can select that there too. So we're just going to go and select number 1, which is semi-half duplex telemetry and courtesy tones transmit. Hit OK. Now it's going to ask for the node password. So to find out that, remember we go into our portal and then node settings and then find the node number associated. And we can see here, here's the password. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in this password into our node. Note that it is case sensitive as well. So once we've put that in, just hit OK. Now it talks here about IAX RPT password. Let's just set no because we're not interested in that at the moment. SimpleUSB settings. SimpleUSB is the program that's used to interface to the plug-on Pi board or the plug-in Pi if that's the node that you have, or a USB modified sound fob if that's what you need. We're not going to configure the settings just now, so hit no, and then we need to go ahead and restart. Now that we've done that, we're now into the main menu, and we can go in here and change a few other things if we want to. Here we've also got the option to change the connection to Wi-Fi. We're going to go to the SimpleUSB, which we were going to do in the previous step, but we're going to do now. So just hit that. Once we're in here, this is where we're setting our audio levels in and out, and also our other parameters such as how it receives and all that sort of thing. You can see here, but just typing the selection and then hitting enter allows you to select what you want. So in this case, what we've got is we've got a couple of settings that we need to change. We need to go to option B with our Sherry Pi Hat and hit enter. That's going to then disable the receive boost because we don't need that. So once that's been disabled, just hit 0 to exit out of that menu. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up the radio for transmission in this. Now I've set this up before because this is a rebuild, but I'll go through the process again. So you want to go down to menu item number 9, which is starting the bash shell interface. So that brings up this. And what we want to do is we want to go CD USR local SBIN. And then if we do an ls, this gives us a list of everything that's in this folder. And then we want to type SA818-prog and hit enter, noting that it is case sensitive. Okay, so now that we've done that, it'll test to make sure that it can talk to the SA818 in the Pi. So we're programming a Pi hat today. So we select menu option number 2, hit enter. This will ask whether you have a VHF or a UHF unit. I have a VHF unit, so just hit 1, and it will ask for the transmit frequency. So I'm going to select 145.350, hit enter. The receive frequency 145.350, hit enter. Do you want to use a subaudible tone? I want to select yes. I want to select 1 because I want to use the CT/CSS tone. And we're going to select 91.5 and a receive tone of 91.5. Reverse burst, I don't want that, no. Now the squelch value set relatively low because we're running CT/CSS, so that's not really that important. So let's hit 1. Enter the volume. So we're going to enter 6. So that's the recommended for this unit. Select pre-emphasis, de-emphasis, hit yes. We want a high-pass filter. We want a low-pass filter. And we check all of that. Looks good. Let's hit yes. And that'll now program the SA818. Okay, so now once we've done that, we can type exit. And now we want to go back and we want to set our levels in SimpleUSB. So go back down to 12 and we're back here again. The first thing let's do is let's set the receive voice level. So if you hit 2, this brings up an interactive voice level. And if we actually now transmit on 145.350 with the correct tone that I've programmed in, VK7HH testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see there that there is a movable meter. Now, my current setting is 500. If you were to have a service monitor or some way of generating a 1 kilohertz tone at 3 kilohertz of deviation, you would set that so that it would land at this little V here so that we set the level correctly. However, most hams don't have that. So we've got the level setting at 500. Ideally, what we want to do then in that case is just speak into the microphone at a normal level, and you see that bar moving back and forth. VK7HH testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to set that bar so that it's just past that point of 5 kilohertz, and we'll be roughly in about the right spot. So what we're going to do is go ahead and hit enter. We're at 500 at the moment. Let's just go 600 just to see how we go. And then we go VK7HH testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're just getting onto that 5 kilohertz level now. So that should be fine. So let's just hit enter. It'll ask us to change it again. Let's just hit enter again. And now that's been set to 600. So let's just hit W to write. And we're good to go. Now we can also set the transmit level as well. If you select option E, which is currently toggle transmit test tone, it's disabled. If you select E, that will then enable it. And we can actually go to menu 3, which has the current transmit audio setting, which is set to 500. If we hit enter, we get a 1 kilohertz tone being sent. I usually set mine down to probably about 350 to 400, but it depends on what your module is. It might vary a little bit. So if you've got a service monitor, then set that. But if it sounds a little bit too loud, go back into that option number 3 there, and then just pop the level down. So I'll set mine to 350, and that sounds okay. And we'll just hit W to write, and we're now good to go, and we've got a working node. Now, there's just a couple more things that we need to do. We need to go in and we need to port forward that 4569 port. So many different routers are going to have different ways of doing it. I'm going to put up a screenshot here of my port forwarding. You need to port forward the UDP port 4569 or whatever port you selected to the IP address of your Pi. And then you need to port forward that out, and that will allow people to be able to connect into you, and so that you can connect out as well. So I can't show that because there's going to be lots of different routers, but I'll put the example of my router. The other thing we want to also do is you want to go into run the *CLI client, menu option number 11. we want to make sure that our DTMF tones are coming through correctly. We set the receive level earlier, but we want to make sure that our DTMF tones are coming through because that's what we use to control. So if we just select, we start at 1 and we received 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, hash, star, 0, hash, A, B, C, D, and all received okay. So it's receiving our DTMF correctly. So now we've got a working node. Let's dial a friend of mine, Kyle, who we looked at before in the node list, AA0Z. And I think Kyle is awake at this time. Hopefully he's listening. So his node number is 48370. So the way Allstar works is we dial *3 and then the node number to connect. So let's go *3 48370.
Node 48370 connected to node 59598.
Okay, so now we're connected and we should be able to give him a call. AA0Z, AA0Z, VK7HH calling on Allstar.
VK7HH, Alpha Alpha 0 Zulu. Hello, Hayden. How are you?
There we go. Good, thanks, Kyle. I'm just doing an Allstar video. So setting up Allstar using HamVOIP. How's my audio quality coming through?
Sounds like you're sitting next to me here, talking to you on a Bowfunk here in the house, and the Allstar Sherry node is downstairs, and yeah, you sound great.
All right, Kyle. Well, that's good. Thanks for the demo. So there we go. That was a quick QSO with Kyle, AA0Z. Now, if you're actually clicking on your node number here on the status page, you can click here on a bubble chart. This will generate a chart of all of the nodes that are connected and how they're connected. So you can see that it's got my node connected to Kyle's node, and it gives you a bit of a report there, which is pretty cool. And then you can also go back here and there's a list of nodes and it gives you key up times, how long it's been up for, transmits, timeouts, how many commands, all this sort of stuff, which is pretty good. So what we want to do is now that I've finished the QSO with Kyle, I want to do *1. We use *3 to connect, so we do *1 to disconnect, and then what we do is we dial his node number. So we do *1 48370.
Node 48370 disconnected.
And now we're disconnected. So we're back just standalone. There are a whole bunch of other commands that you can run in Allstar, and I'll put a list of them right here so that you can see what they are. There's a whole bunch of other things. It can say the time. You can, again, say the IP address, restart the node, all sorts of things that you can do. So here's a list of them right here. If you want to learn more about Allstar, then I recommend that you check out the AllstarLink wiki. The AllstarLink wiki has pretty much everything documented on it on how Allstar works. Also check out, I spoke to Kyle, AA0Z. He's done a number of AllstarLink videos, and also he's done some streams before as well. So I'll put a link down to his channel below. Feel free to dial into my node. Occasionally I'll be listening. My node number 55580 is the main one that I'll be listening on if you want to have a QSO. I might not be able to respond every time, or I might not be around. Now, Allstar is more than just simplex links like I showed with the Sherry Pi. I've also interfaced it to repeaters and also other links before. If you want to see some of those videos, then I'll put a link to those right here. Very, very interesting. It's a very, very powerful system, Allstar, and I encourage you to check it out.